Hello and welcome to True Crime Sleep Stories, where you can settle in with a good true crime tale while drifting off into a safe, sleepy slumber. Maybe you want to sip on a hot cup of tea, grab a warm fleece blanket, or cozy up by the fire. Whatever you decide to do, just make sure you're comfortable and ready for relaxation. I'm your host, Kelli Barons-Brink, and before we get started tonight, I want to remind you that as a Patreon member, you'll get even more sinister, sleepy content because you get multiple versions of each and every true crime story. Patrons will have access to an ad-free version so you can really relax without the distraction of advertisements, as well as a version with or without music. Some people enjoy the music and some people prefer it without, but patrons can have it all. You'll also have a video version, so there's a lot of value there in your membership, and you're supporting the show. You can go to patreon.com/truecrimesleepstories to sign up now. And now it's time to get comfy because I'm going to tell you a bedtime story. Since August 20th, 2007, at least 20 detached human feet have been found on the coasts of the Salish Sea in British Columbia, Canada, and beaches in Washington State and the US. These macabre discoveries have sparked a lot of interest among scientists and conspiracy theorists alike. Why would so many feet be lost in this unusual way? How did they get there? What happened to the rest of the bodies? The feet were usually found in shoes, which experts thought were responsible for both keeping the feet buoyant enough to eventually wash to shore and for giving the feet enough protection from decomposition to be found relatively intact. The most recent discovery was on January 1st, 2019, when people on Jetty Island in Everett, Washington called police to report a boot with a human foot inside, which medical examiners were able to match to a man named Antonio Neal, who had been missing since December 12, 2016. The 22-year-old man, who was very close to his family, went missing without a trace less than 2 weeks before Christmas 2016, never to be seen or heard from again. Two painful years would go by with no answers until Antonio's boot, faded from salt water and sun, would wash up onto a Washington beach with part of his leg and his sock still in it. Other than news that Antonio had been in an altercation with an unknown man the night prior to going missing, there have been no leads in Antonio Neal's still unsolved case. And his mystery is not the only one like it. These foot discoveries are not the first ones on British Columbia's coast. Prior to the recent seeming rush of feet washing ashore, there have been earlier instances going back more than a century, such as a leg in a boot that was found on a Vancouver beach over 100 years prior to Antonio Neal's case, all the way back in 1887. Then, on July 30th, 1914, the Vancouver Sun reported that recent arrivals from Kimsquit reported a human leg encased in a high boot that was found on a beach near the mouth of the Salmon. It was thought that the remains were from a man who had drowned on the river the previous summer. As of September 2018, 15 feet have been found in the Canadian province of British Columbia since 2007, and 5 in the U.S. state of Washington. The feet include a number of matched pairs. In British Columbia, 13 of the 15 feet have been identified. The latest was a left foot found on the shore of a rocky beach in West Vancouver, British Columbia, in September 2018, and through DNA analysis linked to a male that went missing earlier that year. The 2 identified feet found in February 2016 washed up on the shore of Botanical Beach on the west coast of Vancouver Island. In the US, one of these pairs belonged to a woman who jumped from a bridge. Of the 2 other US feet identified, one foot belonged to a missing fisherman and the other of a depressed man who probably committed suicide. His identity has been withheld on request of his family. After the 5th foot was discovered of the 20, the story had begun to receive increased international media attention. With major headlines from newspapers such as the Melbourne Herald Sun, the Guardian, and the Cape Times in South Africa, the story elicited much speculation about the cause of the mystery, originating from morbid fascination with this type of subject, as stated by one scientist who identifies remains of victims. As international interest in the mystery of the disembodied feet grew, even late-night talk show host David Letterman questioned 2 Canadian audience members about the mystery. Everyone wanted to know where the floating feet were coming from. Another human foot was discovered on June 18, 2008 on Vancouver Island. Royal Canadian Mounted Police launched an investigation and found that this particular instance was a hoax. It was actually a skeletonized animal paw which was put in a sock and a shoe and then stuffed with dried seaweed. After the 11th foot was found on August 31, 2011, in Vancouver, copycats began to surface with even more hoaxes. Several running shoes contained what police suspected as raw meat were found washed up on Oak Beach, British Columbia. In Canada, the coroner's service said in December 2017 that foul play had been ruled out by authorities in all investigations, and that the feet came from people who died either in accidents or by suicide, and the feet detached during the normal decomposition process. Decomposition may separate the foot from the body because the ankle is relatively weak, while buoyancy caused by air either inside or trapped within a shoe would allow it to float away. According to Simon Fraser University entomologist Gail Anderson, extremities such as the hands, feet, and head often detach as a body decomposes in water, but they rarely float. However, finding feet and not the rest of the bodies has been deemed unusual. Finding 2 feet has been guessed at 1 in a million odds, and thus has been referred to as an anomaly by one police officer. There's so much more to this story, and if you're still awake and interested, I highly recommend you Google this, or check out our show notes for more resources on the mystery of the severed feet. I'm Kelli Behrens-Brink, and this has been tonight's True Crime Sleep Story. Lock your doors, sweet dreams, sleep tight, and don't let the monsters bite. Good night.